interpret. It's peering right now to dawn. It's at its brightest effectively right now. People are recommending you go out tomorrow morning to see this. That's my plan, is to get up.
Do you know what the characteristics are of a mammal, Paul?
Get some images of
3 things, and 3 things only.
My little telescope that I have.
A covering of hair or fur, breast milk, the presence of breasts and breast milk for the young, and 3 bones in the inner ear.
And so there's this progression, this journey.
That's it. That's it. If you've got them, you're a mammal. I think that's extraordinary. But the point is that once upon a time there were marsupials all over Gondwana, and then as another bit of Gondwana that broke away and started to do its own thing was South America. And once upon a time there were marsupials all over South America as well. But in the fullness of time, South America collided with North America, and by then there were more variations on the theme of mammal abroad on the northern territory, more fecund, more fertile, faster, better adapted to the available terrain, and they wiped out the marsupials that had been on South America all of that time. So that's why, eventually South America was just filled with more of the kind of mammals that we're all familiar with. However, the bit that was Australia was like a life raft, a gargantuan life raft, upon which marsupials were safe. They were out in the open sea, and adrift, and nothing could get at them to make their lives impossible. So for all those millions of years, while that languid motion of the continent of Australia was drifting up towards Asia, the marsupials were all safe and well and continued to reign supreme. And it was only after tens of millions of years that Asia was close enough that other forms of mammal life began to make contact with the continent, including Homo sapiens, including us. And once that contact was made, then the situation began to shift. But nonetheless, Australia is still a land of marsupials, because there hasn't enough time and devastation hasn't been wrought by the rest of the world to significantly and meaningfully alter that. All those species have disappeared and become extinct. So, a critical moment in the story of the world, as far as we're concerned here in this podcast, happens in January 1836, and that's the time and the place when Charles Darwin comes together with Terra Australis. So he steps ashore, and by that point he's 4 years into the voyage of the HMS Beagle. He's a rich man's son. When he joined the Beagle, he was an enthusiastic naturalist, come botanist, come biologist, but he was untrained. He was born into a family where the intention was he was going to grow up to be a clergyman. That was the ambition that his family had for him. He was a direct descendant of Erasmus Darwin, who was a naturalist, and also on the other side of the family, Josiah Wedgwood. He of the great pottery family, the ceramics people. So that was his lineage, and that's why there was money. And so Darwin was born the kind of person who could just indulge whims. He didn't need to earn a living. There was money there. And so he was scholar. We think about scholar as being someone that goes to school, but really scholar implies leisure. Scholar implies the freedom to just think. And Charles Darwin was one of those. And as I say, the intention had been that he was going to be a man of the cloth, but he defied peacefully and quietly and without much rancour. He took a different path, and he followed the ways of science. So, and he gets the opportunity to be aboard HMS Beagle, and he's been all over the shop, seasick every day of his life. Can you imagine? He's on a voyage without end on a ship around the world, and he's always and only seasick, so he suffers for his science. But by January 1836, he rucks up on Australia, And the moment within the moment, he's in a place called Wallarawang. Let me just give you some coordinates there. That would be to the west of the Blue Mountains in the central tablelands of Australia. Really just a wide spot in the road, I suppose you would say, Wallarawang. The place name, it's so Australian sounding, isn't it? You know instantly that you're talking about somewhere in Australia. It's a corruption of a name used by the Wiradjuri indigenous people in that patch of Australia, and if it means anything, it's something like lots of water. So they had identified it as a place where they could get water. It's a sort of a riverine landscape. And so Darwin, he's rocked up there, and he's taken out on the evening, towards late afternoon sunset. He's taken out by the overseer of the whoever owns the wider territory, European, has employed a Scotsman as overseer, a guy called Andrew Brown, and he takes young enthusiastic Charles Darwin out for a bit of a tour of the territory. And it's there and then, on that late afternoon, early evening of a day in January 1836, that Darwin comes face to face with a duck-billed platypus.
Pests are terrible guests. So before they move in, we move in. Local experts, custom treatments. That's early pest control.
From this coronal hole right here, coming in just 36 hours. So that right there is going to be magnetic fluctuations and more. We have all that coming in as well. But this also could be completely internal change. But the ancients have known for thousands of years, because they were watching the skies religiously, that was the best entertainment you could have, that when these comets come in, significant events unfold. This could also be like climatic shifts, weather things. Like, spring is a season, or fall, depending where you live, where the weather is really a bit more erratic. They've been having crazy hail in parts of the United States, like softball-sized hail and tornadoes, and there was a water spout off the Puget Sound in Washington. So things like this as well. You just have to look for where you see sudden changes that get catalyzed into action. That's where I would probably then start to think maybe this comet is interacting at this level of reality. But it could be, again, completely internal. It's really hard to say. But let us look at our software program, Stellarium, to learn a little bit more about kind of the story I think Pan-STARRS is telling us, because it really is very interesting. So let me move this over for you guys. And here you see it's dark. So I will turn on the constellations. There they are. And I'm going to
Didn't a Chinese carrier go through the Straits of Hormuz just right when they? Oh, you mean a military? I bet one of their ships
One
went
of them
through.
did
Yeah.
right when they were starting, but now we're turning them back. They buy 80% of Iran's oil, so nobody's going to miss it except China. So basically what the United States is doing is saying, we're going to control the strait, and we're going to let anybody who wants to do business with Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, but not Iran. And Iran's island, Kharg Island, where almost 90% of its oil is. You think they were so smart that they have a port on the other side of the strait, but they were so arrogant, thought that they were always going to intimidate everybody and no one was ever going to intimidate them. They never did what Oman, the Emirates, did, and put a port that was a sizable, they have one, but a sizable port in front of the strait, and then have a big pipeline, and they could have got around it, because it would have been harder to police in the open outside the Gulf. So basically now where we are is Iran is quickly going broke. It's going to implode. The population is restive. And we're in the driver's seat. So if you game it out, you say, well, how many days can they survive? Probably a week, 10 days. So maybe we should do what they're doing. They want to just drag it out. And I can go back to that old metaphor. Can't hear you. I don't know
Yeah,
what
someone in
you...
class was just saying it's interesting over the years. And you can go back to the early 90s, before or after. But someone in class is specifically mentioning the early 90s. I can remember that. I just want to say we were in about 4th grade. Yeah, so that would have been 92-ish. Yeah, when you look at some of the other things going on with technology and cartels and drug trafficking and pedos and traveling bands of scouters and touters and marketers and coast-to-coasters and channels, operations, different things, investigations. Just curious journalists, people writing books, trying to figure out who killed Kennedy. Yeah, now when you look at some of these different case studies and areas where we have some of the higher concerns with different things going on as far as producers with some of those specific things you're talking about, yeah, you're going to notice a strong history of people doing experiments and studies with clairvoyance, telekinesis, those kind of studies. Right, now in the early 90s, I remember what you're talking about. We were in about 4th grade, and I can remember them pushing prescription drugs, and I remember my mom refusing them to medicate me because I was kind of OCD, hyperactive, weight problems. I could be kind of lethargic too, yeah. Guess it depends on where the moon was. Right, so I can remember, yes, it was about that time, between 4th and 6th grade. So it would have been probably at 92 to 94-ish, because I graduated from 8th grade in 96, so I want to say, yeah, 4th to 6th grade would have been, yeah, about 92 to 94. Yeah, when you look at, in our community out in Whitefield, Maine, where there was a lot of different drug trafficking, I know in recent years they've busted a lot of illegal grow operations, fentanyl and stuff like that. Yeah, meth labs. Right, so I remember around that time a lot of people started homeschooling, and it was mostly, I remember they were having arguments about pushing different holidays and Santa Claus and Halloween and kind of not really bringing through kind of true understandings in history with a lot of things when it comes to basic human evolutionary things, biologically, technologically, spiritually, if we can use that word. I know, I'm sorry, I see some of the classes and I know some of them. Once you say that word and conspiracy theory, not going to listen to these kooks. Yeah, that's normal over the years. We've been on the program since we were 18 in the year 2000, and we're very familiar with a lot of those things on both ends. And everything in between. Even the fuzz on the outside. Call it the aura of all that is good. Yeah, so a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses in the Jewish community, most of them started homeschooling. And I can remember Mr. Dyer okayed them to start putting the video cameras in the classrooms. We had one in ours. I can remember too, yeah, it was right around that time when they started videotaping we had, it was kind of, we were switching between Mrs. Dawson, Mrs. Dodge. We had a lot of substitutes for some reason. And then, when we went into 5th grade, we were out in the trailers. 5th grade got to be in the trailers, and it was one of those kind of double wides, so there was 2 5th grade rooms. Yeah, I remember that. Miss Bork and Mr. Cullenberg, yeah. Yeah, no, remember the songs they taught us before they started homeschooling, too. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the burning of the school. Yeah, well, that was some of the Chase girls, but they weren't Chase girls. They were just foster kids of the Chase girls. They were like Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, they lived up by the Superette there. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the burning of the school. I have tortured every teacher. And they taught us some nice songs, and then they all started homeschooling. I thought it was comical when you really think about everything. I read a lot of books and watched a lot of movies, so say I have a good imagination. All the Jewish and Jehovah's Witnesses started homeschooling. They started with the video cameraing, and a lot of like the granola type people, as they would call them, were saying how society was going to be, was detrimental, it was going to cause huge, vast mental illnesses. So you had groups trying to medicate people, arguing about really dumb syndicated market stuff when you think about it. And when you go back into those days, and if you remember, like Tammy Faye Baker type stuff, and 700 Club, Israel, UK, Wuhan. Right, and then when you think about the years of these people and different world leaders trying to throw out the concern about what people in those administrations had been doing, and when you think about 9/11 and all of that stuff, and the concerns with infectious disease and bioweapons. Right, so when you think about when new technology comes about, when tasers were created, that technology, I mean, do you remember before tasers came out, police had it? Remember you could go to the gag stores and buy those little electric things and shake someone's hands? Yeah, so they made those illegal. They outlawed those, just like, remember? Well, I think they're not illegal. They just kind of, stuff stopped to be popularized with that technology. Holograms. Right, remember it was like a quick second. It was like, wow, they were showing like a hologram on the stage and showed that for a quick minute. And it's like, where'd all that cool stuff go? Is that a titanium spine? Wow. You must be picking up signals from Mars. Mom has a titanium rod in her leg, and we always joked about how she's picking up signals from China. I know it, huh? Yeah, that was around the time, too. One of my older sisters, before she started dating that older guy that they arrested for child molestation, who I didn't think did anything wrong, and some of the Oprah photographers and other fucksticks, the shit they were doing. Some of them, not just some, right? Really just the towel boys. I don't even think necessarily the photographers. They need help, too, right? Someone has to hold the light. Anyways... Fan! We need more fan! Fucking stinks up in here. Hold on. Wait. Mommy! Daddy, do you want some sausage? So, and if you remember, Jerry Springer. Can't we all get along, man? RuPaul, Ricky Lake. I mean, think about it. Come on, folks. What the fuck are you doing? Right. So anyways, do you remember? I remember that. It was 4th to 6th grade. They all started homeschooling. They taught us some cool songs. We got videotaped. People were arguing about the medications and the vaccines and all that stuff. Yeah. I know. And then it kind of got squashed, and they scared everyone with AIDS, and even Magic Johnson had it. They were the quilt came around. Remember they had the big AIDS quilt in the gymnasium? some kids were scared to go near it because they thought they were going to catch AIDS from going near the quilt.